let's go back now to Anika. Hi, Anika. Thanks for doing that. It's just I didn't want to have your voice drowned out. I'm just going to play you, if this is all right, Wade Robson and James Safechuck. This was them speaking to CBS this morning after the Leaving Neverland documentary, and they obviously did a lot of interviews after that. Just a warning to everyone listening that it is quite graphic. So I just want to give you a little trigger warning to turn down your radio or just tune out for a second if you are going to be triggered by any of the words that they give in this interview. And this was Wade Robson, James Safechuck talking to CBS this morning.
One of the ways I remember it starting is, Michael just sort of starting to touch my legs and touch my crotch over my pants, and then it kind of kept progressing from there. He would grab my hand and have me do the same thing to his crotch over his pants, and then it progressed to him performing oral sex on me, him showing me how to perform oral sex on him, him showing me how to French kiss, squeeze his nipples.
Yeah, I mean, that's all the same. He did the same thing to me as well. He introduced me to masturbation, and then you start kissing, and I'm on tour, so we're together 24/7, and it's happening over a period of time. And then you're kissing, and he said I taught him how to French kiss. And then it moves on to oral sex. It's like, can I kiss it? That kind of thing. That's what it starts with.
So, Anika, I mean, that's pretty harrowing stuff. Do you genuinely feel like they're lying when they are saying those sorts of things?
Based on the evidence that I've reviewed, based on the documents that have come out of court, based on their own stories, which have changed numerous times, yes, I genuinely do. There is no need for them to lie if what they're saying is true. There would be a story and it would be a version of events that they would be consistent with. It's changed so many times. There's so many problems with what they've been saying. In fact, much of what they said in Leaving Neverland has been discredited.
Do you not get that a lot of people, though, who have genuinely suffered from sexual abuse, and I've reported on these stories for years, sometimes their stories aren't particularly consistent. When they're young, sometimes there are indiscrepancies in their story. Sometimes their story isn't completely, absolutely infallible because, when you're being abused as a child, sometimes your recollection changes. Sometimes there are inconsistencies. That is the nature of being a child victim of sexual abuse.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with you there. But that doesn't explain why, as grown men, they've been lying. So as recently as during these lawsuits, they've been lying, provably lying. The judge has reprimanded them. For example, one example of that is that Wade Robson lied about knowing whether or not the estate of Michael Jackson existed. Despite being in communication with them, we have emails showing that he's communicating with the estate. And yet in court, he's saying, well, I didn't know they existed. So getting details wrong of childhood trauma, one thing, but lying in a court case is a completely different issue.
Why was Jackson sharing a bed with them then? I mean, that's the thing that I think so many people can't get their head around, is that the easiest way to not leave yourself open if what you're saying is true and that these are false allegations is to not share your bed consistently and privately with children, not just these two children, but also other children that found themselves in a position where they were accusing him.
So again, I'll agree with you there. I wish he'd never opened his bedroom up to anybody. But again, the truth of that is that it wasn't just children in his bedroom. There were adults there. That, the reality of Michael Jackson's bedroom is that it's bigger than my house, and that's just his bedroom. There were people in there, in and out all the time. He had a very open door policy a lot of the time, which I know is very difficult for people to believe. But when I tell you, I've been to Neverland 3 times and visited, and it was very much a go where you want, do what you want, have fun type of scenario.
But he spent the night privately with a lot of these boys. And there was also, it was confirmed when people searched Neverland, there was quite a lot of security to sort of get to the bedroom. And I think that's a big part of it, that people really can't understand, is why you would you know, I get it. Sometimes there might have been sleepovers where lots of people would have been there. There were tales where there were the siblings of some of these children were sometimes there. But there were very regular occasions where Michael Jackson shared his room and his bed one-on-one with children.
He should never have done that. There's no question about it in my mind. He should not have done that. However, part of that responsibility comes from the parents as well. I'm a parent. Would I let my children share some random adult's bedroom? No, I wouldn't.
Why would you not?
One, to protect my children, and two, to protect the adult. Because I shouldn't, as a grown-up, as a responsible adult myself, I shouldn't put someone else in that position.
So why are you able to see then that there would be a potential for the very least an accusation of abuse, or indeed abuse? I mean, if I came along, I don't know you very well, Anika, and if I came along and said I'd like to share a bed with your children, you would immediately think, well, there's something sinister going on. Why aren't you able to think that there's something sinister going on from Michael Jackson?
So what I'm saying is that just because he did share his room with people, it doesn't mean something happened. And in order to sort of establish what did or didn't happen, all we can do is look at the evidence that we have available. And if you do examine the evidence all the way back from 1993, all the way up to today, it's very, very clear what did and didn't happen.
It's also very clear that someone like Geordie Chandler was able to draw his penis. How could he have been able to do that?
So, again, the truth of that is that the drawing that Geordie Chandler drew did not match. Geordie said Michael was circumcised. He was not. We know this from Michael's autopsy. There were other inconsistencies in that drawing too. That's a legal fact. That's not me that's not my opinion. That is true, but it hasn't been reported that way. Something that I would strongly advise that you and anyone who's really interested in knowing about this does is watch a documentary called Square One on Amazon. That really delves into some of the details about this that people may not know. And the beauty of this documentary is that it goes into some of the facts of the case, not people's opinions, which you can discount because what someone thinks doesn't really matter. What we need to know is what did and what didn't happen.
Why would he have paid off if that was absolutely, if what you're saying is absolutely correct and the picture did not match in any way whatsoever, so that there would be no way that he could be connected to the abuse of Geordie Chandler? Why did he give him, what was it, something like $25 million, I think it was in the end? Why would he do that if he was innocent?
Okay, so let me explain that. There's a really good reason that settlement happened. At the time the allegations were made, the Chandler family were pursuing a civil case against Michael Jackson. As a result of a civil case, you get a monetary payout, criminal trial, as everyone knows. You know, if you're found guilty, you go to jail. So the Chandlers were pushing and pushing and pushing for the civil case to go ahead of the criminal case. Michael Jackson and his team were pushing and pushing and pushing for the criminal case to go ahead. Now, the reason for that is if the civil case goes first, Michael's defense would have to defend it, right?
Yeah.
So his defense would be out there for the prosecutors to watch and tailor their criminal case where his life is on the line accordingly. So Michael's lawyers, they submitted, I think it was 4 different motions to the judge saying, look, just pause the civil case. Let's get the criminal case done, the more important one, arguably. And then once the criminal case is done, the civil case can continue. Jordan Chandler's family, however, opposed that very, very strongly, and the judge sided with them on 4 separate occasions. Michael's lawyers then said to Michael, look, you've got 2 options here. We do the civil case and then we go ahead with the criminal case. And don't forget also the burden in a civil case is much lower than it is in a criminal case. Or we settle the civil case, get that gone, and we focus completely on the criminal case. We do not give away our defense in this civil case. We focus on the criminal case and we defend that because that is where your life is on the line. Settle that, it's chump change to you. Focus on the criminal. Taking that advice, Michael settled the civil case. The settlement explicitly states that this does not prevent the Chandlers or anybody else testifying or pursuing criminal charges. This is the key thing. You cannot settle a criminal case. You can't. So they were free to take the money, which is what they wanted. Admittedly, themselves, they've admitted that. That's what they wanted. And to get this abuser tried in a criminal court and thrown into jail if indeed he was guilty. They chose to take the money and not to pursue it. They did not want a criminal case.
That was always going to be a risk with those very highly paid lawyers of Michael Jackson. That was always going to be a risk. And I just have to see how I would feel in that situation. And I'm sure, you know, if you were accused of something you hadn't done, I wouldn't hand over one penny to tell the world that essentially I want it gone. I would want that day in court. I wouldn't care whether it was the civil case. No. I wouldn't care if it was the civil case first or the criminal case. I would not hand one penny to someone if I knew I was innocent and I was being extorted, because that's what you're saying it was.
But so I'm a lawyer. From a legal point of view, if I was your lawyer, my advice to you would be, listen, the burden of proof in a civil case is significantly lower.
Absolutely. But if I was innocent, I would say, I'm sorry, I am not taking that advice, because what it's saying to the world by me handing over that money is that essentially I've done something wrong. And when you add that, Anika, with the fact that he's got James Safechuck and Wade Robson, and I accept what you're saying, there are inconsistencies. There are also, there's Gavin Arvizo, there's another boy as well. Do you not think that, fine, you can maybe pick apart each individual situation, but with a body of evidence from 5 separate boys, one of which was paid off to the tune of $25 million, all in all, do you not think that absolutely stinks? And to me, it says, well, you're guilty of something.
But equally then, if we take what you're saying and he's paid off a boy to the tune of 25 million, does that not say to other potential money-hungry people out there, oh, we were around him, we could do the same thing. He paid them, he could pay us.
Well, that's a compelling argument as to why he should never have paid off Geordie Chandler, and I agree with you, because that says I'm guilty. It says I'm guilty by paying someone off, and I take what you're saying about the legal reasons, but I'm sorry, if I was innocent of something, if I knew I'd done nothing wrong, I would want every detail in a civil, in a criminal, I would want it out there. I wouldn't care.
But that's why you wanted the criminal case.
But then why pay off the civil case? Go for the civil one first. Do anything you can to stand there and say I am not guilty.
That prejudices his right to a fair trial. And in fact, it was so bad, the law was changed after this to ever stop that happening again.
But it didn't stop it happening again, because he got them back into bed with other boys.
No. To stop.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, that it stopped the process of being able to have a civil case before a criminal case. But what I'm saying is,
the injustice of it was noted by the legal system.
So then why was he getting back into bed with other boys after then?
Do you know what? I will be completely honest with you and say that was stupid. I mean, if I could have shaken him...
Or a paedophile. You're either stupid or you're a paedophile, and he wanted to get into bed with boys.
Then you'd be a very stupid paedophile.
Well, maybe he was, or maybe he thought a lot of paedophiles, we've had many of them here in the UK that have been accused and then gone on to abusing others. Maybe he thought he was untouchable. He thought, well, I've paid off Geordie Chandler, I can keep doing the same thing, because if you feel that you're untouchable, otherwise you would surely never be left alone with a child again after you'd gone through that, unless, of course, you got a sinister reason for it.
So even with Gavin Arvizo, there was pretty much always someone else there, you know, as has been testified in court and things like that.
Other than the times there weren't.
Gavin was a strange case, let's put it that way. Again, it's so, you know, I don't think you've got the time for us to delve into it in as much detail as I would love to. Watch Square One. There's so much information in there. All right.
Listen, Anika, really good to talk to you. You've put together a really compelling case as to why you don't accept what is being still said about him years later. Anika Kotecha, I got it right that time, co-founder of MJInnocent.com. So where do you stand? I mean, Anika put together a very, very compelling case, but for me, I just can't understand why you'd still share a bed with children unless it's perhaps for a sinister reason. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll talk more about this in the next hour.